All right. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you about the sales process, my sales process. And one thing that I want to have you think about, what is your why? What is your big why? Why do you want to make more money? Is it to go on vacations? Is it to have more time with your family? Is it to have more financial freedom? So write that why down if you can, because we'll be going back to that later. And I want to also touch upon really briefly is creating trust and rapport. So obviously this is paramount in sales. And a lot of you are members of Legacy Caring, so you're already trusted provider. So I'm not going to dig too deeply into this. But one really phenomenal way to create trust extremely quickly is called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So it's basically matching and mirroring. And when I say that, 93% of communication is not what you say. It's your body language. It's your voice inflection. It's your facial expressions. It's your tonality. It's your tempo. It's things of that nature. So let me give you an example about this. So I had a gentleman come into my new home sales office recently, and it was a day where I had about 5 hours of sleep. So I wasn't quite my loud, enthusiastic self. And I was moving slower, I was talking much slower, much slower paced. And I matched exactly how he was. He was a much softer spoken gentleman who moved a lot slower. We had very, very quick rapport. And it was interesting because he came back to my new sales community with his wife, and I was my normal self. I talked quickly, I talked loudly, I was very enthusiastic, and I could see by the time we got into the first home, I had broken rapport with him. So listen what I do now. When I realized that, I lowered my voice. I also lowered the tonality of my voice, and I started gesturing and moving much slower. Within a minute, I could tell that by his body language and his facial expressions that we're in complete alignment again. So this is a way to create trust extremely, extremely quickly with your clients. Another way is what Jeff Shore calls being coffee worthy. And if any of you are not familiar with Jeff Shore, he is a very famous new home sales trainer. And so he says being coffee worthy is basically having your clients like you enough to where they would at least sit down and have a cup of coffee with you, okay? So this isn't jumping in when you meet a client and speaking to them initially about your product or service. So you're wanting to speak to them about other things, ask them questions about themselves, find commonalities. So let me give you another example. I had a gentleman come in to my new home sales office recently, and we had just beat the 49ers. And he was wearing a Seahawks cap. And obviously I'm a Seahawks fan. He was a Seahawks fan. So I initially, right off the bat, complimented him on his hat. And then we proceeded to talk about the game, his favorite player. We were literally talking about the Seahawks for probably around 10 minutes before we even started talking about my homes. I had a friend, right? People like to do business with people like who? Like themselves. Exactly. So we created so much rapport that it allowed me to, if you create this type of rapport, it's going to allow you to really dig deeply when you're in your discovery process to find, their current discomfort, their current discontent, and their pain, and what's really going to benefit them, okay? And if you don't have that initial rapport, it's going to be really hard to ask some of these questions that we're going to go into. Now, to kind of transition the discovery process, I really think it's important to have a hook, especially for business-to-business sales. I always had a phenomenal hook. Now, a generic hook is something like, if I could increase your business, or your productivity by 20% and your profits by 20% in the next year, is that something you'd like to hear more about? Now, you're going to want to create a hook that's specific to your business and your industry that gets people to want to know more. And then you're going to want to follow it up with a question, though. You're going to want to ask their permission to ask them questions. So, great. It sounds like you want to hear more about this. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions to see if you're a good fit for my product or service? All right? And then you go into your discovery process. Now, in my opinion, the spin selling discovery process is by far the most beneficial discovery process out there that I'm aware of, okay? And what I like about it, buyers have a lot of fears, right? They have fears of salespeople. They have fears of making the wrong choice. They have fears of what their family will think. They have fears of making change. There's all these underlying fears. What I love about this process is it really converts the fear of buying your product to the fear of not buying your product. And it does this through many different questions, all right, that you go through with them. So you're really finding their current dissatisfaction and showing them their benefits. So they get fearful of, if I stay where I'm at, this is what's going to happen to me if I don't make this change. So it makes them want to move from where they're at to where they're going to go. And it's really reverse psychology. So you're getting them to tell you the benefits. So let me ask you a question. So if I tell you the benefit of my product, you might be listening, right? You might not be listening at all. So, but if I get you to tell me the benefit, what's that going to do for you? It's what psychologists use. So it's going to, for one, it's obviously a true benefit to you because you're telling me. And also, it's going to click in your head much more, all right? So there's 4 different types of questioning when you're going through your spin selling process. And I want to emphasize this. You don't want to just ask 4 questions. These are multiple questions you want to ask on each one of these points. So the first question is going to be a situation question. Second question is a problem question. Third question, implication question. Fourth question, need payoff question. So let me give you an example of each one of these. In my industry, a situation question would be something like, do you want to rent? Okay? Pretty simple, straightforward. A problem question would be, let's say that they own a home. Would be, so what's causing you to want to move out of that home and into a new home? Okay, and I'm going to dig deeper into these, all right? And then let's say that this person owns a 2-bedroom home and they have 2 teenage boys in one room. I'm going to ask an implication question, implication of their problem. So tell me what life is like with your 2 boys in that one room. And I'm going to dig deeper into that. So I'm going to figure out, maybe the boys are having issues. Maybe it's hurting their relationship. Maybe it's hurting their grades. Maybe it's hurting the marriage. Now let me emphasize this. They're not going to tell you and let you dig this deep with them if you haven't initially created that trust and rapport. But if you have, they will, and they do, all right? And then need payoff questions are questions that allow them to really feel what it's going to be like to move away from their current dissatisfaction that they feel and to move towards the benefits of your product. So what I'm going to do with this couple is take them, let's say, into a 3-bedroom house, okay? And then they're going to see that each kid has their own room, and I'm going to be like, tell me a little bit about what life's going to be like for you with each of your boys in one room. And I'm going to dig deeper into that questioning so they can tell me more and more benefits. So you want to use this throughout your presentation. So in going into the presentation portion, I don't like the word presentation as much as I like the word consultation, because you're really taking a consultative approach. You really should be, I think, talking maybe, 20, 30% of the time and listening 70 to 80% of the time, right? Asking them questions. You're going to want to ask them questions that lead back to what you found out in your discovery process, that lead back to their pain, their discomfort, and to the benefits of your product, all right, as you're going through the presentation on your product or service. A lot of salespeople that I see feature dump, okay? I've never heard of a salesperson listen themselves out of a sale. I've heard many salespeople talk themselves out of the sale. All right. So you want to construct your presentation around what you found out about them in the spin selling process. Okay. So ask them questions that pertain to that. But you also want to ask them a couple other questions. One would be trial closes. You want to convert your presentation into a closing opportunity and also leading questions. So trial closes are a way to really take your buyer's temperature. Figure out where they're at in the process. It leads to a yes or no answer, okay? So if you're asking trial closes and they're telling you no a lot, you're going to need to shift gears and go a different way, okay? If they're telling you yes a lot, you're going for the close, right? So just to give you an example of trial closes in my industry and my business would be, so in your opinion, do you feel like your family would be happy in this home? Do you see yourself living here? How do you like the kitchen? How do you feel about the master bedroom? They're going to give me a yes or no answer to those type of questions. Leading questions are questions that lead to a yes answer. So you know you're going to get a yes answer from them. So the more small yeses you get throughout the sales process, the easier it is for you to get the large yes at the end. Okay? So let's say that the wife likes Chef's Kitchen. And we go into the house, and I'm looking at her body language, and I see her walk into the kitchen. We have Chef Kitchens in my my community. And she goes in, and she's like, yeah. I'm going to ask her, beautiful kitchen, isn't it? And I'm going to get a yes answer, okay? So now what I'd like to speak to you about is creating urgency. And keep in mind, this is a fluid process. You're not going from one to another. This is all tied together here. And you want to create urgency as soon as you can in the process, obviously. And honestly, if you are doing the spin selling and you are really finding their discomfort, you are creating urgency right off the bat, okay? So there's two different types of urgency. There's product urgency and there's personal urgency. Now, it's really, really hard, unless you're selling a product or service that's very inexpensive, to create product urgency without personal urgency, okay? How do you find that personal urgency? Well, it's through the questions that you ask in your spin selling. It's through those problem and implication questions and need payoff questions that got them to want to move away from where they are and move forward with your product. That's how you create that personal urgency. And then you can create the product urgency on top of that. So, you know, prices going up. For me, prices going up. An offer coming in on the home that you really like. You know, one-of-a-kind home. You know, scarcity of a product. Things of that nature. Then you can go ahead and create that. Now, going into objection handling, one thing that to note is you want to get objections out as soon as possible in the process, okay? So get them out very early on. Make sure that you kill the monster when it's a baby, not when it's Godzilla and it's eating the city, okay? You don't want to have a mountain of objections at the end of your sales process. And the way I go through my objection handling process is, a lot of times people there's a difference between an actual objection and a complaint. I know a lot of salespeople that they attack every objection. You know, you don't want to come from a place where you're trying to attack objections. You want to make sure they're well educated and guided through this process. So a lot of people throw up complaints that aren't true objections, and they run out of steam and they end up going away. So the first time, let's say that I'm walking to a house and someone says the price is too high. I ignore it. That's the first thing I do. I ignore it. I don't say anything. And I keep walking and move forward with my presentation. If they bring it up again, then I hear them out. I say something like, no, I hear you. And then I keep on going. I don't acknowledge it because there's a very good chance it's a complaint. As we get further in the presentation, they're going to run out of steam, and it's not even going to be an objection, and it wasn't in the first place, okay? Now, if they ask me a third time, I'm going to feed it back to them, okay? I'm going to say something like, it costs too much? So what does this do? This puts the objection back in their court, okay? So now they have to justify to me why the product costs too much, not have me justify it. I've asked this question before and had people answer their own objection, and I didn't even have to deal with it, all right? Now, you want to make sure, obviously as a salesperson, you want to make sure to narrow down to the final objection, all right? So let's say they come back with, yeah, you know, I told you the price is too much, okay? So I'm going to say something like, so hypothetically, you know, just suppose, which I can't do this, but just suppose I could lower the price of my home. You say it's $10,000 too much. Let's suppose I could lower the price $10,000. Would you move forward today? If they say no, you are not dealing with a true objection. You're dealing with a smokescreen objection, all right? Because people will say these kind of things up here, give you these, you know, shallow surface type of objections or supposed objections that are not real because they don't want to tell you the real reason that they're not moving forward. They don't want to come forth with that, okay? So then I follow up with a question like, so, all right, so it sounds like there's something else holding you back and making you hesitate. Do you mind me asking what that is? And then you're going to get to their true objection, okay? And let's say their true objection hypothetically is price, right? I can't lower the price of my homes. So I'm going to reframe their actual objection into a question, okay? I'm going to convert it into a question because it's really hard to overcome an objection, but it's pretty easy to answer a question. And most objections I found are really just underlying questions that people have. So I'm going to say something like, so, let me ask you this. So if I could show you how this home would really benefit you and your family and justify the price, would you be open to moving forward? Okay, so I'm going to, isn't that your true question? Whether or not your family is going to benefit enough from this house to justify you paying this price? All right. So in the case, let's go back to the case of my family. The family that I was talking about with the two boys. And, I would say something to the effect like, I would do what's called a reduce to the insignificant close with them. So I would say, think about this. $10,000 spread over 30 years, the life of a loan, is going to be about $50 a month. Now, let me ask you this. Is your family's happiness worth $50 a month? They're going to say yes, unless you're not very good parents. So another thing to really keep in mind is don't project your own bias onto your clients, all right? Don't give them your objections. So let me give you another example. So part of my community is by 405. And I was walking with a couple there recently. And, we were going into the house, and it was very loud outside, very quiet inside. The wife loved the house. The husband was like, okay, this is great, but it's by the freeway. Watch this. And personally, I wouldn't buy the house. But I did not obviously project that upon them. So the husband went to the window and said, watch. And he opened the window, and this flood of 405 noise came in. And I shut up and listened. And the wife looked at him and said, it's lively. I like it. And I was like, objection overcome. I didn't even have to overcome it, so it was great. Now, going into the closing. Now, in my best presentations, I did such a good job finding out their current discontent and making them feel that pain that they were really scared about staying where they were at because of what it would do for their life. And they really saw the benefits of moving forward. In those cases, they sold themselves. I literally just assumed the sale and wrote it, But that's in a perfect world. A lot of times, people are obviously going to come up with, even if you did a phenomenal job in your discovery process and everything else, they're going to come up with objections at the end. They're going to come up with hesitations. And there is a big difference between being what I call a pushy salesperson and professionally persistent. So you need to have an arsenal of closes, all right? A pushy salesperson is going to say, do you want to buy this? 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 It's not going to work, right? It's not going to come out as professional, and it's going to push people away, and they're not going to want to see you again. Now, you need to have at least 25 closes scripted, memorized, and role-played so that you know them like the back of your hand. So know your takeaway close, know your alternative choice close, know your if I could, would you close, your sharp angle close, your summary close. There's so many different closes out there, and make them specific to your industry. And you can look them up, and you can customize them the way you want. Because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, let's say you assume the sale. They come up with an objection. Then you want to get away from that objection. You're going to want to, discuss the objection, go through the objection process that we spoke about, possibly even get off onto another topic. Get them laughing. Humor is extremely beneficial in sales. And then get back and ask for them. Let's say this time you ask for a summary close. Then go back, answer an objection, go back, and then do a direct close. Answer an objection, go back, do a takeaway close, and get the sale. Okay? So it's a process that you go through. And keep in mind when you're closing is if you built really strong rapport with them, they like you, they've said yes to you many times, and you've had them laughing throughout the process, it's really hard for them to say no to you at the end. Okay? So I am going to go ahead and close on this note. If you wrote your whys down, that would be great. And then share those amongst the groups that you have when you're in your networking. And then also, I'm going to be having a seminar coming up. So there is a sign-up sheet somewhere here. So if you'd like to sign up, please sign up for that. Thank you very much.